Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why some people with the same 24 hours in a day as you are creating wealth, building businesses, and leaving legacies while others stay stuck in the same cycle year after year? The difference is not talent, it's not luck, and it's not resources, it's focus. Focus is the force that takes your potential and turns it into power. Focus is the magnet that pulls your purpose into reality. Without focus, even the greatest opportunity will slip through your hands. With focus, even the smallest opportunity can transform your life. Potential is a beautiful thing. But let me tell you the truth, potential that is never focused will always remain wasted. You can have the greatest talent, the biggest dreams, and the most incredible ideas, but if you don't learn how to channel your energy into focus, all of that will sit dormant inside you. And here's the hook: the world is not moved by potential, it is moved by performance. Potential doesn't change lives, focus does. Potential doesn't create wealth, focus does. Potential doesn't build empires, focus does. Your potential is the raw material, but focus is the power that shapes it into something the world can see, touch, and feel. Think about a river. When water is scattered, it simply flows around obstacles. It's nice to look at, but it doesn't create impact. But when that same water is channeled into a dam, concentrated, and released with focus, it produces electricity powerful enough to light entire cities. That is the same with your life. Your potential is like that water. If it's scattered, it looks impressive but does very little. When it's focused, it produces unstoppable power. The difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary life is not the size of the dream, it's the sharpness of the focus. Some of you listening right now have been living at the level of potential for far too long. You know you're capable of more. You've felt it in your spirit. You've dreamed about it at night. You've whispered it in your prayers. But every time you start, distractions creep in. Every time you commit, you lose momentum. You've been busy, but you haven't been focused. And business without focus is nothing more than disguised procrastination. The enemy of your success is not lack of opportunity, it is lack of focus. Here's another hook. Success doesn't come to those who have the most talent, it comes to those who focus the longest. Look at the most successful people in any field. They didn't get there because they tried everything. They got there because they focused on one thing long enough to become excellent. Excellence is not born out of variety. It is born out of focus. If you want to step into your God-given greatness, you must decide that your potential will not go to waste. You must decide that your time, your energy, and your attention are too valuable to be scattered. And let me tell you this, focus is a decision, not a gift. Nobody wakes up automatically focused. Focus is a choice you make every single day to direct your energy toward what matters most. You don't drift into focus, you discipline yourself into it. And when you choose focus, you activate the power inside of you that was waiting all along. That's why people with less talent sometimes outperform those with more talent. Because talent without focus is a liability, but focus without talent is unstoppable. You might be thinking, but I've tried before, and I failed. Let me shake you with this truth. You didn't fail because you didn't have potential. You failed because you lost focus. The dream is still alive. The ability is still inside you. The opportunity is still available. What you need now is not another start. It's sustained focus. Imagine what would happen if, for the next 12 months, you gave yourself completely to one vision, one purpose, one mission, without quitting, without wavering, without giving up at the first distraction. Do you realize how powerful you would become? Your life is proof that potential exists, but your results will be proof that you learned how to focus. Every great invention, every business empire, every transformation story began with someone deciding to turn their potential into power through focus. That is the invitation I'm giving you right now. Stop celebrating potential and start living in focus. Because when you focus, your potential becomes a force that not only changes your life, but also impacts generations to come. Distraction is not harmless. Distraction is not just a little delay, a small interruption, or a moment of lost time. Distraction is an enemy, and it is after your destiny. Every great vision, every great assignment, every great future has a thief assigned to it, and that thief often shows up in the form of distraction. The greatest danger to your destiny is not always failure. It is not rejection. It is not even opposition. It is distraction. Because distraction doesn't need to stop you outright. It only needs to pull you off course just a little bit. And if you stay off course long enough, you'll never arrive where you were meant to be. Here's the hook: distraction doesn't look like danger. Distraction looks like an option. It looks like something you could do, something that feels urgent, something that seems harmless. But in reality, every time you give your energy to distraction, you are robbing your destiny of the focus it needs to manifest. You cannot reach the heights you were designed for if you're constantly bending down to pick up distractions along the way. Think about this: a plane flying across the ocean only has to veer off by 1 degree. And over time, it will end up in a completely different country than it was supposed to reach. That's what distraction does to your life. One small shift, one small compromise, one small delay, if you keep entertaining it, you end up in a place you were never supposed to be. Distraction is expensive. It costs time, it costs energy, it costs opportunity, and in many cases, it costs people their destiny. Some of you are not failing because you lack the ability. You're failing because you're distracted. You're scrolling when you should be building. You're comparing when you should be creating. You're entertaining negativity when you should be executing your plan. The hook is this: the enemy doesn't have to destroy you if he can just distract you. Because a distracted person is already defeated. They just don't realize it yet. And here's the sobering truth: distraction is subtle. It rarely shows up as something obviously wrong. Most of the time, it shows up as something good that keeps you from what's great, something urgent that keeps you from what's important, or something temporary that keeps you from what's eternal. Distraction is not just wasting your minutes. It is stealing your mission. Every distraction you allow is a deposit you're making into failure's account. You cannot afford to treat distraction casually. Your destiny is too valuable. Your calling is too important. Your time is too precious. When you realize how short life is, you stop wasting it on things that don't move you forward. People who succeed at the highest level are not the ones who say yes to everything. They are the ones who say no to distraction with boldness, with confidence, and with discipline. Here's another hook. If you don't define your focus, distractions will define it for you. If you don't take authority over your attention, everything and everyone else will. Distraction is a battle for your focus, and whoever wins that battle owns your future. That's why the people who guard their focus so fiercely create results that look impossible to everyone else. They didn't have more time. They didn't have more talent. They just refused to let distraction rob their destiny. So let me ask you, how much longer will you keep letting small things sabotage big things? How much longer will you let temporary pleasures delay permanent success. How much longer will you give your attention to people, places, and problems that don't deserve it? The moment you decide that distraction no longer has access to your energy, your life will begin to accelerate. Because destiny only opens the door for the focused, never for the distracted. Results don't come from doing more, they come from doing what matters most with intensity, consistency, and clarity. You can run in 100 directions and still stay in the same place. But if you run with focus in one direction, you will cover more ground in a year than most people cover in a lifetime. That's why focus multiplies results. It doesn't just add, it compounds. It takes your effort, your energy, your time, and it multiplies them into outcomes that look impossible to the average eye. The truth is, it's not about how much you do, it's about how focused you are on what you do. Here's the hook. Greatness doesn't require you to do everything. It requires you to do the right things consistently. Some people spend their lives busy but never effective. They confuse activity with productivity. They think because their calendar is full, their future is secure. But business is not proof of progress. Focus is the proof of progress. Focused effort turns minutes into momentum, while scattered effort turns years into regret. Think of it like farming. If you scatter seeds everywhere without intention, most of them won't grow because they land in the wrong soil or they're never watered. But if you intentionally plant those seeds in the right soil, nurture them, and focus on what's growing, you multiply your harvest. The same is true in your life. Scattered effort produces little, but focused effort produces overflow. And here's the real power. The more you focus, the faster the results multiply. Somebody listening to me has been frustrated because you feel like you're working hard, but you're not seeing the fruit. The problem isn't your work ethic. The problem is your focus. You're pouring energy into too many buckets, and most of them are leaking. What if you took that same energy and poured it into one or two buckets that matter most? Suddenly, you wouldn't just have addition, you'd have multiplication. You'd start seeing results so fast, people would wonder what changed in your life. The hook is this: nothing changes until your focus changes. Think about the power of a magnifying glass. Sunlight by itself warms the skin, but when you take that same light and focus it through a lens, it becomes powerful enough to start a fire. The light didn't increase, but the focus did. That's how your life works. You don't need more hours. You don't need more talent. You don't need more resources. You need sharper focus. Because when you focus, you take what you already have and multiply it into something greater. Focus also compounds over time. The first few weeks of focus may feel slow, but the longer you sustain it, the more exponential your growth becomes. Most people never experience the multiplying power of focus because they quit too soon. They get distracted, they get impatient. They want instant results. But here's another hook. When you stay focused long enough, your small daily actions turn into unstoppable momentum. What looks insignificant today becomes undeniable tomorrow because focus multiplied it behind the scenes. And let me give you a sobering truth: unfocused effort is one of the greatest wealth killers in the world. There are people with brilliant ideas who die broke because they never learned how to focus. They kept jumping from one thing to the next, always chasing, never mastering. Wealth, success, excellence. They don't come from dabbling, they come from dedicating. They come from choosing focus over distraction, clarity over confusion, mastery over mediocrity. So I challenge you to ask yourself, what would happen if I gave my full focus to one vision, one business, one gift, one assignment? How much further would I be in 90 days, in a year, in 5 years? Focus multiplies results, not because you are doing more, but because you are doing less with more power. And once you experience that multiplication, you'll never settle for scattered living again. Clarity is one of the most valuable assets you can ever possess because clarity removes confusion, eliminates hesitation, and accelerates decision making. But clarity is not something you stumble upon. It's something you create through focus. Most people don't lack potential, they lack clarity. They wake up unsure of what they should do. They move from one idea to the next. They second guess every decision, and as a result, their life feels like it's stuck in neutral. But the moment you focus, clarity begins to appear like a light cutting through fog. Here's the hook: you don't need more information. You need more focus. Information without focus creates overwhelm, but focus turns information into direction. That's why so many people are drowning in knowledge, yet starving for results. They know more than ever, but they do less than ever because they are scattered. Focus transforms that scattered knowledge into a straight path forward. It takes what you know and turns it into action. Imagine driving a car in a storm. The rain is pounding, the windshield is blurry, and it feels dangerous to move forward. But the moment the wipers kick in, suddenly the road becomes visible again. That's what focus does for your life. It wipes away the noise so you can see where you're supposed to go. Without focus, you're driving blind. With focus, you're driving with clarity, speed, and confidence. Some of you have been standing still because you're waiting on clarity before you start. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come first, focus does. When you focus on one thing, clarity shows up. The more you focus, the clearer things become. The people who succeed are not the ones who wait until they see the whole staircase. They're the ones who focus on the first step. And as they take it, the rest of the path reveals itself. Here's another hook: clarity is not the absence of problems. Clarity is the presence of focus. You may still face challenges, but when you're focused, you know exactly which challenges are worth your attention and which ones are distractions. Clarity helps you say yes to what matters and no to what doesn't. It makes the difference between wasting energy on things that don't move the needle and investing energy where it counts most. Focus also creates clarity and identity. When you scatter yourself across too many roles, too many comparisons, too many expectations, you lose sight of who you really are. But when you focus, you start to understand your strengths, your gifts, and your purpose. You stop trying to be everything to everybody, and you start being who you were created to be. Clarity and identity leads to confidence and action. You move differently when you know who you are and what you're called to do. Think about a camera lens. When it's out of focus, the picture is blurry. You can't make out the details. You can't capture the beauty, and everything looks confusing. But the moment the lens sharpens, clarity comes alive. The picture was always there. You just couldn't see it until focus brought it into view. The same is true for your life. Your vision, your opportunities, your breakthroughs are already there, but you won't see them until you focus. The greatest trap is thinking you need to figure everything out before you commit. But clarity comes as a result of focus, not before it. When you lock in, when you commit, when you give your attention fully to one direction, the fog begins to lift. And what once felt overwhelming suddenly feels obvious. What once felt complicated suddenly feels simple. What once felt impossible suddenly feels achievable. So here's the hook I want you to take with you. Unclear people live uncertain lives. But focused people live unstoppable lives. The more you focus, the more clarity you create, and the more clarity you have, the faster you move toward your destiny. Stop waiting for clarity to appear. Create it by choosing to focus today. Greatness is not built in a single leap. It is built in small, consistent steps. But let me tell you the truth. Small steps only become powerful when they are fueled by focus. Without focus, small steps feel insignificant, they feel slow, and they feel discouraging. But when you apply focus, those same small steps compound into breakthroughs that seem impossible to anyone watching from the outside. Focus is the multiplier that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Here's the hook. Your future is not created by what you occasionally do. It's created by what you consistently focus on. You don't need to take giant leaps every day. You just need to take small, focused steps in the same direction. The danger is not in moving too slow. The danger is in being distracted while you move. A distracted person can run in circles for years and never arrive. But a focused person taking small steps will reach their destination every single time. Think about water dripping on a stone. One drop by itself does nothing. But that same drop, repeated with focus day after day, eventually carves a hole into solid rock. That's the power of focused consistency. It's not that the drop got stronger. It's that the focus multiplied the impact of every single drop. The same applies to your life. When you focus on a single action, a single discipline, a single mission, even your smallest efforts start producing unstoppable momentum. Some of you have underestimated the small steps in front of you because you're comparing them to someone else's big leap. You see their success and think you need to match it overnight. But here's the truth, their big leap was built on years of small, focused steps you never saw. You can't skip the process. You can't cheat the compounding effect of focus. Every time you choose to show up, to practice, to build, to serve, to create, you are stacking focused steps that will one day produce an outcome so great it will shock even you. Here's another hook. Big doors swing on small hinges, and big results are built on small, focused steps. Stop despising the day of small beginnings. Stop underestimating the power of what you can do today. Because what you do daily with focus determines what you experience permanently in your destiny. Focus is the bridge that takes those small hinges and turns them into massive doors of opportunity. Focus also protects your progress. Without focus, you'll take a few steps forward, get distracted, and then slide backward. But when you stay locked in, your progress compounds. Each step builds on the last one, and over time, you don't just add progress, you multiply it. That's why success often looks like it came suddenly to outsiders, but it never comes suddenly. It comes from focus applied to small steps over time. Think about training in the gym. If you go once a month and lift the heaviest weight you can, nothing changes. But if you go consistently, even lifting smaller weights with focus, your strength compounds until your results are undeniable. The same principle applies to your finances, your business, your relationships, your faith. Small steps, repeated with focus, create transformation that no giant leap could ever replace. So let me ask you this. What small step have you been ignoring because it seems too insignificant? What action have you delayed because it didn't feel big enough to matter? The hook is this: your destiny is hidden in the small steps you take with focus today. Every world-class musician started with a single note. Every empire began with a single brick. Every breakthrough was born out of someone staying focused on small steps long enough to see them multiply. When you understand that focus transforms small steps into big outcomes, you stop waiting for the perfect moment, the big opportunity, the overnight breakthrough. Instead, you embrace the power of daily, focused action. And the moment you do, your life shifts from ordinary progress to extraordinary multiplication. Wealth is not built by luck. It is not built by chance. And it is not built by simply working harder. Wealth is built by focus. The people who rise to the top in business, in finance, in impact are not always the smartest, the most talented, or even the most connected. They are the ones who know how to focus. Focus is the tool that takes average resources and turns them into abundance. Focus is the discipline that transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary wealth. Without focus, you can make money, but you will never build wealth. With focus, you can take the smallest seed and grow it into a forest that feeds generations. Here's the hook: money follows mastery, and mastery follows focus. Too many people want wealth without focus. They chase every opportunity, they jump at every shiny offer, they dabble in 10 different things, and then they wonder why nothing multiplies. The reason is simple: you cannot multiply what you refuse to magnify, and you cannot magnify without focus. When you spread yourself thin, your results stay thin. But when you lock in on one path, one business, one mission, and you give it your undivided attention, your results begin to compound beyond what you ever imagined. Focus in wealth building means saying no to distractions disguised as opportunities. It means refusing to chase every new trend and instead committing to mastering a vehicle until it pays you. That's why some entrepreneurs who focus on one business become millionaires, while others who chase 5 businesses stay broke. The hook is this: scattered effort creates scattered income, but focused effort creates generational wealth. Focus also creates efficiency. When you focus, you stop wasting money, time, and energy on things that don't produce results. You begin to recognize which investments bring return and which ones drain you. Clarity and focus allows you to double down on what works and eliminate what doesn't. That is the foundation of wealth, putting resources where they multiply instead of where they evaporate. Think about the wealthiest people in history. They didn't build their fortunes by being everywhere. They built their fortunes by focusing somewhere. They picked an industry, a craft, a gift, and they went deep, not wide. They created mastery in one lane, and mastery attracted money, influence, and opportunity. The same principle applies to you. You don't need 10 opportunities. You need one focus that you commit to until it transforms your financial reality. Here's another hook: wealth doesn't respond to people who are interested. It responds to people who are focused. If you treat your financial goals casually, your results will be casual. But if you treat them with focus, discipline, and intensity, your results will be exceptional. Focused people don't just make money, they multiply money. They don't just earn income, they build assets. They don't just live for today, they focus on creating a future where their wealth outlives them. And understand this: focus in wealth is not just about money, it's about habits. When you focus on building disciplines like saving, investing, learning, and executing, you create a foundation that wealth cannot help but sit on. Most people fail financially not because they don't have income, but because they lack focus in how they manage it. Money without focus leaks away, but money with focus grows. So let me ask you, how much longer will you allow distractions to rob you of financial freedom? How much longer will you keep scattering your energy across things that don't multiply? The hook is this: focus is the great equalizer. You may not have the same starting point as others, but if you focus, you can surpass them. Focused effort can take you from struggle to surplus, from just enough to more than enough, from working for money to making money work for you. Focus is your greatest wealth building tool because it gives direction to your energy, purpose to your time, and multiplication to your results. And once you understand this, you will stop chasing everything and start mastering something. And mastery, fueled by focus, is the true engine of wealth.